Welcome to the Greater Culture Podcast, where movement, mindset, and mastery meet. Join us as we explore the art of living fully with expert guests and real-life stories to inspire your journey. And welcome to another episode of the Greater Culture Podcast with your host, Brad Marshall. And today, excited to be joined by Kristin Bowen. She's somebody who's been in the CrossFit space for a while now. If anybody has taken their L1 or even L2, maybe you've interacted with her. She's got 350 plus seminars under her belt and a Flowmaster. So I'm excited to hear a little bit more about her story and how she found CrossFit and how she's developed that into a career beyond just a passion. So Kristin, thanks so much for spending some time with me on the podcast today.
Hey, thank you for having me. Super excited to be here. And also, good job knowing how many seminars that I have under my belt. I barely even know at this point, kind of.
Well, thankfully, the website you created for Salty Bungalow Collective had a little bit of bio and info that I just went there and stole. So whether it's accurate or not, I don't know, but at least your website says that. So we're going to run with that.
No, it's accurate. Yeah. A lot of seminars under my belt over the years, for sure.
Yeah, and Kristin and I have gotten to know each other through Best Hour. It's fun to kind of flip the tables. Usually she's jumping on the YouTube lives and I get to ask a lot of questions and she's answering. But now to have her as a guest on the podcast is exciting to me. We just had an opportunity to connect at the Best Hour of their day mastermind, and she gave a great talk about feedback and how important that is. But I'm always very curious to hear where people's story began when it comes to finding health and fitness, and for you in particular, getting into coaching and then continually advancing your coaching career. So give us your origin story of where did all this begin when it comes to your health and fitness journey?
Oh, I love it. The origin story. How far back do we want to go here? Okay, I will go back to childhood. How about that? We're going to go all the way back to childhood. It'll be quick, I promise. Just that I've always done sports. I've always been pretty active. I was a swimmer growing up, and I started competitively swimming year round in, I don't know, probably like 8th grade or something, maybe a little earlier than that actually. But got to high school, started doing soccer as well. So I did a little like swimming and soccer. And then just got to a point where I had to choose. Chose swimming, ended up swimming. I was a walk-on for the swim team at James Madison University in Harrisonburg, Virginia. Swam there for a couple years. Stopped swimming after, I think it was 2.5 years, and became kind of one of the assistant coaches, really more like a manager, kind of in charge of like admin behind the scenes, taking care of the team and everything, which allowed me to still be a part of the team. Super, super burnt out, just was not enjoying it anymore at all. I'm like, I just can't do this anymore. You know, when you're crying every day before you go to practice, it's like, maybe this is an indicator. So that was the first time I ever had any sort of like taste into being on the other side of the table as far as like coaching goes. And I say coaching in air quotes because, again, not a lot of thought behind what I was doing from a coaching standpoint, just helping take splits on the sidelines and things. Fast forward, so graduated college, fast forward many years later, still just trying to figure out, you know, what fitness was for me. You know, my story is pretty generic as far as like, how did you find CrossFit, right? It's like collegiate athlete. My entire life, I'm used to having a coach, going to, you know, your practice. You're told what to do, when to be there, what to do. You don't have to really think. And so that was really hard transition for me to continue to be active, go to the gym, but then figure out what in the world I was going to do. Because I don't love running. You know, I had a lot of friends that just got into running, triathlons, things like that. It's never been my jam, that long, slow distance. And found that I really liked some of those, just kind of like, we're going to circuit training, right? We're going to go from here and then here and then here. Very similar to what we do in CrossFit. 2009, I had a really good friend introduce me to CrossFit, went to my free class, did my little free Saturday class, and didn't look back. I signed up right then on the spot. 2010, I took my level 1, and just kind of since 2010 have been diving into coaching, getting more and more serious about it. And I will say that when I did take my level 1, I did it at the request of the owner of the gym, who's one of my good friends, is one of my good friends. And she doesn't own the gym anymore. But at the time, she was drowning. She needed help, right? Not enough coaches to coach classes. I'd been doing it for a year, really enjoyed it. Clearly, she saw something in me that thought I would make a good coach, I guess, because I expressed no interest whatsoever. It was never something on my radar. I had a full-time job in graphic design and advertising. I'd hit the gym after work on my way home, and she's like, "Hey, would you be willing to take your level 1? I will split the cost with you, and then you can start picking up classes and become a coach here." And to be completely honest with you, Brad, I have no idea. I don't remember if I was like, no way, or if I was like, yes, let's do it. I just remember being like, okay. So just kind of, you don't know what you don't know. I'm like, I guess I have no idea what the level 1 really was. I was just like, yeah, that sounds great. You know what? I think it was like, I would get my membership paid for, now that I think about it. And I'm like, oh, that sounds good. Like, save a little money. Cool. Still get to come in and do CrossFit for free, basically. Yeah. So I took my level 1 in 2010, got on the seminar staff with the encouragement of one of my other very close friends. She was on seminar staff, and she was like, hey, I have a little insight that they're about to start hiring, and I really think that you should intern. And once again, it was something I'm like, I don't know. I don't think I want to travel that much. Hadn't really thought about it. But for whatever reason, I think my personality is like, I'm not going to really jump to do something, but once I decide that I'm going to do it, then it's like all in. Like, now I cannot fail. What do I need to do? Now I really want this. And so I just really leaned into prepping for that internship. And that overall made my coaching better, of course, because I'm getting more hours on the floor. I'm practicing seeing and correcting. I'm learning the progressions the right way, all that stuff that you need to know in order to make it through. And I interned, got the job. And then I think, just for the exact reason I talked about, once I'm in, then it's like, all right, let's do this the right way. I don't want to do a bad job. I don't want people to think that I don't belong here. Anything I could do to implement feedback that I got, and just kind of, push myself to be as good as I could for the participants that came on the weekend. I mean, 2010, what are we now? 15 years later? Jeez, no wonder I have so many seminars. So here we are, 15 years later. Still going.
I love the connection there between athlete starting to dabble in coaching, but kind of set that aside for a number of years. And all of a sudden it's like you put that hat back on, you're like, oh, maybe I kind of actually enjoy this. And then finding out that you get pretty good at it and there's opportunities to advance. I'm curious, you mentioned back in college that you experienced some burnout around not wanting to go to the pool or training. What was it for you that seemed to lead to burnout? Because I think athletes kind of have a couple directions they take. Either they leave their sport on good terms of like, I got everything I could out of it. It was just time. And then there's others who it's sort of like they leave almost with a bad taste in their mouth of some of their experiences. So what led to your burnout, and how do you think about swimming and kind of your career now?
Yeah. I can tell you exactly what led to my burnout. I believe I peaked in like my senior year of high school. I would say I was average. And that, depending on like the pool of people that you look in, how do you really determine whether you're good or average or whatever, right? Like big fish in a tiny pond, whatever. In the area that I was in, I feel like I was an average swimmer, right? Now, with that said, now looking back on it kind of in hindsight, I'm like, well, I did walk on to a Division 1 team and I made the team. So, I didn't really understand at that point. I didn't really know a lot about like, oh, there's Division 3 schools that I could go to, and just, I could get recruited from one of those small. I wanted to go to JMU. And so that's what it was. Right. And so I get onto the team, and because I walked on, I'm on the team with like many girls that were a lot better than I was recruited, scholarship, etc. So I had to work really hard to earn a spot on the bus to go to the travel meets. Oftentimes I didn't make the travel team, that type of thing. So I'm working for the first time in my swimming career. I'm doing doubles every single day, right? Like that early 4 a.m. wake up. We have swim meets almost every single weekend. And I loved being a part of the team. I didn't feel like I was missing out on any sort of college experience at all, but I was working and training harder than I had ever trained before. And I just, for 2 years, was not seeing results. I could not. And the way swimming works is, most people know enough about it to know that it's like hundredths of a second sometimes, whether you're going to make a best time or not. And if you can improve your time by 100th of a second, it's like PR, like you made your best time. Great. And that just wasn't happening. I was like, again, I was working as hard as I ever had before, and I just could not seem to get the results that I was hoping for. So after a while, that just wears on you. There's no positive reinforcement. It's just like, what is the point of putting all of this work in if there's no reward? And, I'm not making all the travel teams, and it just wore on me after a while. And so every Christmas is a pretty common thing for collegiate swim teams. There's like a Christmas training trip. So usually, I don't remember, usually you have 3 weeks off for the holidays or something. We would have less than 1 week, and then we would have to return back, and then we would travel for our holiday training, usually to Florida or somewhere warm. But the whole idea is that you just swim all day, every day. It's just massive yardage. And this is a long time ago. So now they likely do things different, knowing what they know now. I was a sprinter, so the fact that I'm training with massive yardage doesn't make any sense. But again, 20 plus years ago. So that year, I was so depressed about having to leave home early, leave my Christmas break early and go and do this. I had a nice talk with the coach. I loved my coach so much. And she was like, hey, let's have you stay home for the training trip. You're going to, just be at home with your family and think about really what you want. And then we'll have a talk after, and we can decide whether or not you want to still be on the team. And again, reminder, I'm not on scholarship or anything. So it's totally my decision. It doesn't matter, as far as that goes. And I appreciated that so much, because there wasn't pressure to be you're either in or you're out. If you don't come on this training trip, you're off the team. It was very much this is your decision. What do you want? And that's really all it took. I was home. It was the first time in my life that I could remember that I didn't have the pressure of having to go to practice, having to be at practice. Even in the summer, we had training that we had to do, and just the freedom and the weight off my chest when that wasn't there anymore was just so, it's I could breathe again. And so I talked to her after, and I knew that I didn't want to still do it, but my biggest reservation is I didn't want to not be a part of the team. I wasn't ready to just be I'm done. So that's when she offered me the opportunity to be the manager, because I can't remember if I think the manager we had was graduating that year, and so we needed to pull another one in anyway or something like that. And so that was all I needed. It was the best case scenario. So I can still be a part of the team. I don't have to do it anymore. And yeah, so, which is great, because it allowed me to answer kind of your second question. It allowed me to really leave with a good taste in my mouth. I still consider myself part of the team. We won the championship my senior year. And that was the big, you're aiming for every single year is to win that conference championship. And I wasn't in the pool, but if I was still on the team, I still wouldn't have been in the pool. I wouldn't have made you know what I mean? Yeah, I haven't talked about this in a lot of years, and I never really made the connection between kind of how I still felt a part of the team and I felt a part of the championship. And now, fast forward, just how rewarding the coaching side is for me. I just never made the connection before that I actually had some experience in that kind of that realm of coaching that I never really thought about. So yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I'm curious of too is I think sport teaches us so many things, which is incredible. Caveat to that is it does teach us that winning matters, or striving for a specific outcome or objective matters. And so I'm assuming when you were swimming, that's the goals, be on the team, get in the pool, do the thing. Because when you said well, you're putting in more time, energy, and effort than you ever had in your life,
Mm-hmm.
and the results weren't falling the way that you were hoping to, how quickly that wears on us and burns us out. And I think about that in the context of athletes we see in the gym of they've been doing the thing. I'm showing up to the gym. I'm putting my time in. I'm maybe eating better than I have, and they're not starting to see results. Or as you age, it's just some of the results aren't coming as quick. and we experience some of that same burnout.
Absolutely.
Have you noticed sort of that either connection or, thinking through what you're striving to work towards and how that plays a role in like whether you keep showing up or not, or kind of wanes on like your desire to want to keep doing the thing?
Like now with CrossFit and just overall working out
Mm-hmm.
and fitness,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, at this point too, I've been doing it for, 15 years, 16 years that I've been actually doing CrossFit. So yeah, definitely motivation, ebbs and flows, results, ebbs and flows. And how long have you been doing CrossFit, Brad?
I think I'm going on about 8 years now, 7 or
Okay.
8 years. So I feel like
Okay.
an infant compared to some of y'all out there,
Right.
but long enough now that the PRs aren't what they used to be, and some of the results aren't what they used to be. So it's
Yeah.
a fun challenge to navigate that.
Yeah. And this is one of those things that you have to continue to find the joy in, right? Like before, it's like, oh, I'm working as harder than I ever have. There's this expectation of having to be this practice and all, but there's always an end, like you graduate and then you're done. Whereas this, there's not an end. Like this is what, right? We want fitness across a lifetime. We want it like as we age. And so I believe that in order to continue to do that, we have to shift our mindset a little bit where I'm not always chasing PRs. Like it's okay, right? Like I know that I peaked in CrossFit in probably like 20, 13, probably 2012, 2013, right? So if I'm always chasing the PRs that I hit in 2012, I'm always going to be disappointed. So what's my motivation now, right? So just the motivation has to switch a little bit. A bunch of my friends at the gym that have also been doing this for a while, we've made this joke like you have to it's almost like resetting your PRs. It started when we had a bunch of people, I don't have kids, but we had a bunch of people pregnant with their first children, and now at this point they have like 3 children, and it's kind of like pre-baby CrossFit PRs, post-baby. And for me, I always made the joke like pre-40.
Yeah. In that though, because I feel the same way where last year turned 35. So it's like kind of reset, like everything that I do now is a totally new environment. So it's all like fair game to be a new PR. And I feel like that's one of the beauties about masters, like every sort of 4 or 5 years, it's sort of like a new threshold of like, this is a new stage of life. This is where I'm at. Let's see what we can accomplish. And so one of the things that you mentioned is how you had a great coach who was able to guide you through some of the challenging moments of swimming and feeling the burnout and things like that. And I think that's so unique, is that our experiences with coaches when we're younger really influence the way we think about coaching, the way we coach later on in life. So what were some of the characteristics or traits that you experienced from some of those early coaches that you interacted with that resonated with you, or that you think were like, hey, these are things I want to pull with me as I work forward?
Oh, yeah. As soon as you started saying that, no longer was I thinking of the good coach that, allowed me to make that choice and everything. And, I see now I'm thinking of the not good coaches, right? And so sometimes we have people that I think we have people that are a strong influence into our style and how we coach just based on like, I don't want to do that. I do not want to be like that. And I'll tell you what, I already told you I was like average swimmer, right? Not the best, not the worst, whatever. My coach in high school, he very clearly, very, very clearly favored, we're high school kids and younger, middle school, high school, very clearly favored the more talented, faster, better people. Very, very clearly. And that just was not fun, as you look back, it's so easy now, you're older, you look back and you're like, my parents were paying a lot of money for me to be on that team, and it probably also didn't help that all of my very close friends who, still in touch with a lot of them now, they were all very good. And so I'm like rolling with the good, like fast, talented people. And so the contrast in how they got treated versus how I got treated was very clear. And so fast forward now, is this a reason why? Is this just part of my personality? Who knows? But I very much find myself drawn to beginners, to people that struggle with just like body awareness, the unathletic people, the older population. Those are the people that I really feel passionate about coaching. And I have little to no interest in coaching the competitive athlete, the competitor. And I say little to no interest. I could very easily say no interest. I don't even know why I said little. No interest. Like I can coach them when they're in a class. I can give them cues to make their movement better, etc. But just I don't care. I don't care how good you are. I want to help the people that need the help a little bit more. So yeah, there may be a little connection there. Maybe.
Yeah, it is fascinating to pull on some of those threads. And I think it's always so fascinating. You mentioned, kids, when they jump into these sports programs, it's usually like somebody fresh out of college or a parent who has no experience coaching or running or figuring out how to like develop these people. And it's like the most formative years of their life that you're like, good
Right.
luck for like
Right.
6 hours a week. I'm going to send you to this person. And I hope you're just getting good coaching and like learning the sport and how to be a good person. And it's like some yes and some no. It's just like, oh, that's
Right.
terrible experience.
It's going to be the biggest adult influence on you other than your parents in those formative years. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's kind of funny when you think about that.
Yeah. And so when you started then at CrossFit within a year, you mentioned because of the circumstances of needing to coach, but that can be a pretty quick turnaround for somebody to go and get their L1 after just getting introduced to the type of workouts. Talk to me about the early years of going to get that L1 and then getting up in front of a group of people. Was there a process of, hey, I'm going to watch you or shadow you or give you some tips? Or was it like, you got your L1, Monday you're in front of the class, good luck.
Yeah.
I think you know what you're doing.
Yep. B. Also, I mean, it was a little wild, wild west then, right? Like there wasn't a lot of structure. When I first started CrossFit, we didn't even really have class times. It was just like, come, here's the workout, and everyone just kind of like rolled in when they were ready. When I started when I started coaching a year later, there was definitely more structure. Like, here's the class time. But yeah, we certainly didn't have any sort of like shadow program internship. It was like, great. Can you do 3 6 a.m. classes a week? I'm like, sure. I think I did 1 or 2 6 a.m.s a week. That was like a regular one. And so it was very much like, okay, like you have your level 1, now go. And so there was a lot of trial by error, learning by doing. So I can't imagine going back and kind of thinking back to when I first started coaching. I'm sure there was not a lot of correcting. I'm sure there was not a lot of seeing and correcting. I'm sure it was just more like group management heavy, right? Like run the class, make sure everybody does the workout, finishes on time and has a good time.
Yeah. And you mentioned that when you decide that you want to do something, you love going all in on it. So what did going all in on coaching look like? I mean, I know at some point in time, the opportunity for seminar staff came up, but I think for some folks, when they start that process, you can see it just lights a fire of like, I need to go figure out how to get better at this thing. And whether it's watching YouTube videos, finding resources, talking to people, whatever it might be. So in the early years, like you mentioned, kind of wild, wild west, did you feel that sort of dive all in and try and get better at it within the first year or two? Or did it take some time of like, do I even like and want to do this thing?
I think a combination of both. Like I wasn't super 2 feet first, everything I could possibly do. But I also knew that I really liked it. I remember taking, after the level 1, before I started doing seminar staff, I was just like, what other courses can I take? So I was doing more of that, right? I took the mobility. I drove up to Trident CrossFit up in DC area and took the mobility course with Kelly Starrett. And we hosted an Olympic weightlifting course with Coach Bergner came to Virginia Beach, and I took that. So I was doing those kinds of things in combination with just watching a lot of videos. And the content then was not nearly what we have now. Like you and I have already mentioned that we know each other through, of course, Best Hour Affiliate U, but also the Knowledge and the Knowledge Pro. Like, oh my gosh, if I had those, I used those. Like I coached the bar muscle up a couple weeks ago, and I got on the Knowledge and was like looking at the progression they have in there for the bar muscle up just to see like, all right, is this different? Are there new things? So man, it would have been nice to have all of that as a resource. But hey, we're always learning. So I'm still learning stuff from there. But yeah, it was more like, old videos of Miranda and like Chris Spieler and Pat Sherwood and just kind of watching what they did, running little circle groups, videos from the old school seminars. And yeah, I was just trying to, learn as much as I could in the time that I had. I was still working a full-time job. So a lot of my focus was going towards that. So I just, had to kind of balance it, right?
Yeah, and you said that you just knew you liked it or
hmm
enjoyed it. What was it about coaching, getting up in front of people, leading a class that stood out to you, or that was those things that made you
Yeah.
feel really good or that you enjoyed it?
This is another fairly generic answer, but it's the truth. So I'll go ahead and say. So when I started CrossFit, I feel like I finally found something that fit for me, that I felt good at, that I was able to regularly go and get a good workout in. It just helped me with so many areas of my life, more so than just fitness. And when I started coaching, I didn't really realize this was going to happen, but what was happening is I'm seeing people kind of go through that same transformation, or you're like, all of a sudden, I got muscle ups and now I can string muscle ups together, and that was like such a huge thing back then because not a lot of girls had muscle ups. And then now I'm coaching and I'm helping somebody else get a muscle up, and the excitement was like, this feels just as good, if not better, than when I got my muscle up. And so you're starting to see like, holy crap, this is rewarding, and it just, the focus became less on what I'm doing and more on what I can help other people do. And now I'm seeing them kind of get those same feelings. And it's a little bit like, I don't want to say it's like addictive, but it's one of those things where it's just like, this feels really good. So it's selfish in a way, right? Like, I think someone said that. I don't know what that quote is, but that there's really truly no selfless acts, because when we do something, it makes us feel good, and so we continue to do it because we just feel so good about it. So yeah, the more I got
Yeah.
into it, the more I could see like, oh, this is fun. I like this.
Yeah, there's this concept of like mirror neurons that we have where it's like when we see something, we take on some of, what we're seeing, what we're experiencing. I think that can be said a lot for coaching, because
hmm
when you get that first movement or you start to get more proficient at something, like there's a lot of joy and excitement that comes from that personally. And then when you start doing it for other people, it's almost like you're reliving that experience through somebody else, like that vicarious experience. So I think there's certainly something to be said there of when you start to see people make changes and they're smiling, they're more confident, they're achieving things in the gym. It can be a little bit of an addictive thing of like, how do I keep helping other people experience that too?
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
And so when you started then realizing, okay, I like this thing, I like helping other people, what was the process then like when you talk about internship for moving into seminar staff? Because, for those who've been in the CrossFit community, the people on seminar staff, those are the folks who are out there training and educating and helping build the CrossFit community of developing new coaches, kind of setting the standard, if you will, for what coaching can look like. Very challenging process to get through. In the phase of your coaching career when you started to work into seminar staff, what was that process like?
It was challenging. And I think, if my memory serves, I liked the challenge because it gave me like some purpose. I mean, it had been a while since I had a job that I felt I felt passionate about and I wanted to do well. And just that feeling of, again, it's just another kind of stepping stone of, you get your first muscle up or you PR your snatch and you have that like really just proud feeling. I hadn't had that with work in a really long time. And so starting the seminar staff internship, doing my first one, it going really well, doing my second one, and getting good feedback and getting pushed into a third one, I'm starting to get that feeling again of like, okay, this is hard. The expectation is high. It's a very, very strong feedback driven culture. So you have to have thick skin, but you also have to be ready and willing to make any changes on the fly based on kind of what they're looking for. and I'm a rule follower. And I'm like, I can do this. What are they looking for? I'll do it. Like, I like rules. So, and that's at the beginning. I'm like, that's probably why I did well, because I knew what the rules are. I know what the expectations are. They would give me feedback and I'd be like, yep, copy that. I'll do it the way that you want me to do it. And I was able to do that in combination with having an ability to interact well with people, because that's another thing they're looking for. Making connections, on a personal level. Can you hear the jets flying? I live near the Sound of Freedom. But yeah, making a connection on a personal level, all of that was there. And then you combine that with the fact that, like, I'm now starting to feel excited by this challenge that is new for me, that I'm starting to realize, like, oh, I think I might be good at this, right? And so then as I got on, got passed through, got given the thumbs up, it was just such a feeling of excitement and pride that I didn't even know I was really missing until it happened. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. And then it's infectious, right? Like, it's the same, it's the age old thing. Like, always put yourself in a room with people that are better than you. And then that will make you better. And that's exactly what it is. That is it is just, it is a role in which you are always surrounded. Even now, like, I'm the course supervisor now. I have 9 times out of 10, I have more experience than the people that I'm working with, but 99.9% of the time, they are better at me than multiple things. And you just have to figure out what that is, so that you can constantly, you just learn from, I might be better at teaching the air squat and giving lectures, but you know a lot more about anatomy and nutrition than I do. So let's talk about that and let me learn from you. And it's just that ongoing process that kind of keeps you going for all of the years and just continues to push and motivate. And then you start to see the trickle down of, like, how you're continuing to make people better. And then that's that same feeling of, like, getting someone their first pull up. It all falls under that same umbrella. It just might look a little bit different depending on what the circumstance is.
Yeah, and it's fun seeing the excitement in your face when you talk about being surrounded by other great people and what that does for you and how it pushes you. How did you develop the skill set to put yourself in positions where you're not the best one in the room? And I know you mentioned, in swim, you felt like you were a mediocre athlete. And so there's probably other people around you who you were constantly chasing. But for a lot of folks, putting yourself into a situation where you're not the best one in the room, or you're trying to learn from others, can be really humbling and sometimes really challenging, whether it's ego that gets in the way or all these other things. But for you, what is it that makes you want to put yourself in those situations and you're actually open to learning and getting feedback versus being closed off of, like, yeah, I'm a redshirt, I'm good, like, I don't need to keep progressing or keep going here?
My honest answer here is that that's my comfort zone. I'm more comfortable in a room with people that I can learn from that are better than me than I am standing, like, for lack of a better term, like standing at the front being like, listen to me, I'm the one that knows everything. That I don't love. It just is, it's uncomfortable. And I've had to work hard at being like, all right, I'm an authority at this. I know what I'm talking about. And yeah, and so it's not hard at all for me to do that, because that's where I feel comfortable. I had to learn a lot about what leadership meant when I got asked to do the Flowmaster role, right? Like, the Flowmaster is a course supervisor. And I did not seek it out, very similar to how I did not seek out to be a coach. I was approached and I sat on that request for like 3 days, because I'm like, I don't think so. This is not me. I don't. And it wasn't until talking to a couple mentors and really completely shifting what I knew about leadership that I was like, yeah, I can actually do that. When they're like, hey, leadership, I mean, we talked about this at the mastermind. It's not about being in charge. It's about looking at the people that are under your care and figuring out how I can make them shine. And so I'm like, oh, if this is leadership, like, I'll stand in the back of the room and be like, okay, Brad, you're good at this. So-and-so, you're good at this. So-and-so, you're good at that. I'm going to support you in being the best that you can. And I'm just going to be behind the scenes making that happen. Like, I could do that all day, every day.
Yeah. And what strikes me is how easily you say, like, you're comfortable in those situations. Did you build that ability to be comfortable in situations of, people being, either more proficient, more skilled, or is it always just kind of come naturally to you?
I think it's always just come naturally to me because that is likely just the groups I've always hung out with. I'm always with the people that are faster than me, or I'm with the people like one of my close friends in my high school group is now a brain surgeon. Like he in high school, he's like, I'm gonna be a brain surgeon. And he's literally a neurologist. So it's like, I'm just it's it just is not something that's uncomfortable for me to be around people that have goals and are high achieving, and it's nothing that has made me feel crappy about myself or anything. It's just like normal. So I've never thought about it really, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And how do you find the balance then between confidence of you can walk in a room and say, hey, I actually know some things and I can share them with you. I can, be somebody who's leading this group. And then at the same time, still have on your hat of like, I still want to learn from everyone else in this room. Because I think sometimes that can be a challenge, especially as a leader or somebody who manages or is in charge of people. Of you want to show confidence in what you're doing and the direction you're going, and you still want to make sure others are involved. You want to make sure that you're putting people in the right position. So what have you learned about that type of role, especially moving into the
hmm
Flowmaster and leading these seminar teams of really, really skilled individuals?
Yeah, I think just being honest with what you do know and don't know. I think a lot of times leaders, in order to feel confident, there's this misconception that we're supposed to know everything. And then the bottom line is that we just don't, ever. So if I can be okay with people knowing that I don't know everything, and it's like I know that I don't know everything, right? You accept that. Then the things that I do feel good about and I do feel confident in, my confidence can almost be a little bit stronger because I'm not trying to fake it. Like I'm not trying to fake that I know everything. It's like, no, I can admit that this is outside of my scope, or I probably could stand to learn a little bit more about that, but I'll tell you what I do know. And then it just really gives me a little bit more to like sink my teeth into, if you will, because I'm not out there trying to pretend like I know things that I don't.
Yeah, I hear the idea of like authenticity and then honesty there,
hmm
of just knowing what you know, knowing what you don't know, and being okay with both sides of that, and understanding that you can help people in certain ways, and other ways you're going to have to lean on others for support and help, and being okay with that. And like as a leader, you don't have to have everything all figured out all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anything, the thing that I am working on more is being more confident in things that I believe that might not be black and white, right? That are like one coach looks at it this way, I might look at it this way. And depending on who the coach is, I have to work on, well, just because they look at it that way doesn't mean I should question the way that I look at it. It doesn't discount mine. It's just two different ways. So if I had like a brand new coach be like, well, here's how I do it, it's much easier for me to say, well, this is how I do it. Here's why this I feel super secure in that. But then if I'm talking to somebody, like if Denise Thomas and I are talking and she's like, well, here's how I do it, and it's completely different than how I do it, I'm much more likely to question the way that I do it. And I have to remind myself, hey, just because we do it different doesn't mean my way is wrong. It's just different. So that's the trap I will find myself in often, where it's like the more
Mhm.
experienced person that is a mentor to me or that I look up to, or maybe is more outgoing or more going, what is the word? Just more like secure and like, here's the way that I do it. I have to work on not letting that affect what I know to be true, my truth, and work for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that perspective of still being open to learn, still being curious and saying, I have done it this way for a long time. I think it's worked well for me, but is that the best way for
hmm
you? Is there different ways? It makes me wonder, you mentioned this idea of, whether you want to call it dichotomous thinking, black and white, like yes or no. When it comes to coaching CrossFit, there's a lot of that type of thinking, like, are the elbows up or are they not? Are their hips being pushed back and down or are they not? Are their knees out at the bottom or are they not? Are they maintaining neutral spine or are they not? But when it comes to working with humans, it's really hard to be black and white. How have you as a leader and as a coach kind of towed that line, because I think we ask and expect a lot of our athletes when we're coaching them, and we can give them cues to get them moving more efficiently. But at the same time, like when you're working with humans, there's a whole lot of gray in there that can be
So much gray.
challenging.
So much
Yeah.
gray. In
How have
fact,
you
at
dealt
the
with that?
yeah, and at the level two courses, it's obviously people that have some coaching experience under their belt. And almost every single level two I work, I find myself saying there are very few absolutes in coaching because people want that black and white answer. They come to me with a question or a situation or whatever, and it's like, it depends. So, yeah, I think just recognizing that there's not a lot of absolutes when it comes to dealing with humans and coaching. However, that is different. That's a different category. That's a different conversation than when we're talking about a standard, right? We like to say the standard is the standard. Like you said, are they below parallel? Are they not? Are their elbows locked out or are they not? Were they late to class or were they not? And late to class or were they not? Yes or no. But then the gray area becomes, well, why were they late? Like, are they late because there was traffic on their way to drop the kids off at school? Or are they late because they are late every single time because they just don't respect the time that the class starts? So that's where we start to get into like, now we've got to figure out what's happening with the human. And that's where I think the gray area comes. But yeah, the standard is the standard. That's something we can communicate every day in class. And yeah, yes or no
I really like
movement.
that. Yeah, I like that perspective of like, here are the standards we have, whether it's points of performance, whether it's what we expect of members when they're coming to our classes. And if they're not meeting the standard, then we can have some great conversation around that. And then because we're humans, like there's going to be so much gray, and approaching each person situation individually can be a better approach versus like, well, you were late, you're doing this, or whatever it might be. So I think that perspective of have standards, work and strive to uphold them, and at the same time understand the individual unique differences that might come up throughout the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And even with the standard for a squat, like, can you imagine if we kicked out every person that wasn't able to squat below parallel? And like, my mom is 72 and she's been coming for years, and this is like the best thing for her. If I was like, you're out, get below parallel or you cannot stay. I mean, yeah, the standard is the standard, but the gray area there is like, okay, let me work with her and where she's at and figure out how I can push her to get into the best position she can get in, and then we go from there. So
Yeah, it's always funny as a coach when you're like, oh, the standard is, like you said,
mhm.
elbows locked out, and they're like, well, I've had elbow surgery and my elbow will never get to 180 degrees. I'm like, well, yeah, but you
You're
really
out,
need it to be locked out overhead.
no
Like,
rep.
make it work. Yeah, exactly. So what are the things when you think about your journey as a leader? You gave a great talk at the mastermind about feedback. What are the things that are still exciting to you, and the things that you're still trying to, whether you want to call it unlock or continue to progress in your own career and development at this stage?
Yeah, a huge part of it is now teaching other leaders practices that worked for me, and just recognizing, and I talked a little bit about this at that talk as well, just kind of recognizing that leadership is not something that comes naturally to everybody. And we've got, just working with coaches or affiliate owners, especially, there's a lot of affiliate owners out there that they own a gym because they love CrossFit and they love just working out with their friends and they love helping people. They don't own a gym because they're an expert leader or they were a CEO at a company or they're a natural born entrepreneur or business owner. And so those are the kind of soft skills I think that can just hold people back a little bit and contribute to that imposter syndrome or the self-doubt. And so I am constantly looking for ways to help people on that journey. I mean, as I'm sure you know, by doing so in that process, all it's doing is also helping me. As I'm learning different strategies and having different conversations, I'm absorbing all the different things that I'm reading or listening to in the case of just different podcasts. And now the difference is not only am I applying it to what I'm doing as a leader, but now I'm starting to hear it in a way of, oh, this would be really great to share with so and so who's struggling with this, or this would be an awesome conversation to kind of put together on the next call that I have. So Yeah, and it's just continuing to work with people who are on a leadership journey and learn from each other, because everybody's got different strengths, everybody's got different weaknesses. Like we talked about, some people really, really struggle with having hard conversations and they avoid conflict. But then there's other people that don't struggle with conflict or confrontation at all. But the end result for both sides is just that we're communicating ineffectively and we're communicating poorly. So it, everyone's got a different strength and a different weakness. So how we can kind of pull all that together and just make ourselves better is that's pretty motivating and exciting for me at this moment in my career.
Yeah, it's fun to hear how over your journey, different things that have been passions turned into jobs, turned into careers, turned into new avenues to explore and learn. With all the skill sets you pick up just from teaching somebody how to do an air squat has led to all these different moments and opportunities that have led you to where you are now, which for those who are interested in either connecting or learning more about you or your journey, what are the best ways for folks to connect or reach out to you if they want?
Yeah, I'd say right now, Instagram is probably the easiest. It's at KBO17, KBO, which is what many people call me. And then once you're on my Instagram, I have a link there to my coaching website where if you're nearby, again, I'm in Virginia Beach, I periodically run some coaching workshops. And the knowledge, of course, if you go to Best Hour of Their Day and click on what you would like to do as an individual coach, that'll take you to the knowledge. So I can be found in that area as well. And yeah, just send me a message via Instagram. And that's probably the easiest at this point to put out there.
Yeah. So if you're looking for help, not only getting better on the floor, seeing, teaching, correcting, but also understanding better how to work with people, communicate, lead, etc., highly recommend not only joining the knowledge, but also leveraging and reaching out to Kristin. It's been awesome getting to know you through Best Hour and looking forward to continuing to have some great conversations and challenging with some different questions on the YouTube lives as they pop up.
Yes, so fun. We love having you on there. So thank you so much, Brad. This is awesome.